The leaves of the tree are for healing.
Shalom everybody. So I'm going to talk about perceptions in this video, and it's something I've actually done beforehand. So I will show that on my screen in case you haven't seen it before. And this is the video: multiple perceptions, multiple realities, gaslighting, narcissistic defenses, and the Essene mirrors. And so I'll leave a link below to that video if you have not seen it before. Basically, I had found some people posting about narcissism again today, and it made me want to sort of discuss this because there was something else I was thinking about which is kind of related, and I'm just going to tie them together, I think, in this video. I had found this quote a while back, and so I wanted to read this in a video. A different version of you exists in the minds of everyone who knows you. I read a book that blew my mind. The main character goes crazy when he realizes no one really knows him. The gist is that the person you think of as yourself exists only for you, and even you don't really know who that is. Every person you meet, have a relationship with, or make eye contact on the street with creates a version of you in their heads. You're not the same person to your mom, your dad, your siblings than you are to your coworkers, your neighbors, or your friends. There are 1,000 different versions of yourself out there in people's minds. A you exists in each version, and yet your you, yourself, isn't really a someone at all. And so I wanted to talk about this because it's so very true, because our perception is what changes our world. Since I've been studying the law of attraction and the Essene mirrors, and all that. I've got videos on these things if you haven't looked into them before. But I've realized that basically, however we're feeling inside is creating our perception of what's going on that we see outside. And even along with that, if you're in a sort of state of mind or a mood that says, everybody lets me down, basically what happens is every single person you meet, you are looking for ways that they are letting you down. And so when you do that, that's what you see. And you also, in that moment, cannot see the way that they are not letting you down. So if somebody is not letting you down, and you have this perception that everybody lets me down, you're not going to see that. Our perception is going to make us spiritually blind to what we don't believe. So the saying that you will see it or believe it when you see it is very sort of, people are based in reality and they just sort of regurgitate the same thing over and over again with that perspective. But it's basically what you believe is what you see. So you'll see it when you believe it. And so if you believe that there is something good in every single person, when you see a person, you will look for the good in them. If you believe that everybody has something negative going on with them, everybody sins or something, then when you see people, you are going to basically see the sin in them rather than the good in them. And we will block out what we don't believe, what we aren't focused on. And so that stuff is just very important to keep in mind. So I'm going to kind of discuss this quote here where he says, the gist is that the person you think of as yourself exists only for you, and even you don't really know who that is. This is so true, because we were born as babies who actually had a clean slate, but people were saying things to us that sort of gave us something to work with in this world. And I'm not going to say it is negative, because everything that happened was probably chosen by us before we came here to work on. But if you see people, let's say your family is poor and the parents that work, a parent or both, says that it's very difficult to make money and that you have to work hard at a job you hate to make money. You can't get paid to do things that you enjoy. These are sort of programs that people, our parents or teachers, may program into us, even if they're not doing that consciously. It's just something that you see, and that's what your beliefs become while you were growing up. And so for you, you may think, I really can't make money doing what I love, and it's difficult to make money. That isn't really who you are. It's a belief that you were given from your upbringing. So if you think that, like, hey, I'm not very good at this or that, it could be because somebody told you that you weren't good at it, but you actually could be good at it. You just don't know. And in reality, I think that we're all really, really great at what we're supposed to be great at. We could become great at everything, I think. But that's not what we choose to do. We don't choose to become great at every single thing in the whole world. You need time to be able to do that. And you do what you are interested in or focused on if you are given sort of the freedom to do that. But basically, we don't know who we are because we have these programs that we were given. And I think that's part of what Jesus meant when he said that you have to become like a child to inherit the kingdom. We have to stop having these negative, limiting beliefs in order to see the prosperity and abundance that's around us and that we are capable of. And that's my point, is that we don't even know who we are because we have our own idea of who we are from when we were growing up. If we don't even know who we are, how can anybody else truly know who we are? And so when you meet somebody else on the street or have a relationship with somebody, they're coming from a completely different perspective with their own limiting beliefs or thought processes. When you see somebody, often you may think, hey, they remind me of this person, and then that's sort of what you see out of that person, rather than seeing a different side. If you see somebody they're having a bad day, let's say, and they're grumpy, and you meet them, and then you get it put in your mind, wow, that person's really grumpy. Then every single time you meet that person in the future, you may be looking for the grumpy parts in them. However, you may have caught them on a bad moment when they're actually very happy. So I know that I have had instances with people who I don't really know very well, and things went down poorly, and I have to believe that there is a good side to that person that I just was not seeing because of my perspective. And the same thing happens with other people seeing you. Maybe you had a bad day, and every single time that person sees you now, they're looking for the negative in you because that's what their perspective is of you. And then what we are believing is what we end up seeing. And so it's very important to keep this in mind when we are interacting with other people, especially if, let's say, we let them down. And I don't really believe that we have to not let people down. The thing is, people are going to have us let them down because they have different perspectives of who we are. So in a relationship, whether it be a friendship or a romantic relationship, when you are with somebody, they have a perspective of, they believe that you can do this, this, and that. And then if you don't do those things, it's not because you did something wrong. It's you were being your own person. But they had too high of expectations for you. And that's idolatry. I also did a video about idolatry, which I'll leave a link to below. And I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget to leave a link below to the idolatry video. And basically, people have their own perspective of somebody else, and they are looking for things. And if they're looking for something, maybe they saw, maybe they didn't, but because of their own perception, their skewed perception, they thought they saw it, and it's not there. then they get let down. And truly, nobody else can let you down if you are loving them unconditionally. The only time somebody lets you down is if you start to get conditional. If you say, hey, I'll only love you if you do this or if you do that, then they don't do it, and that's when you get upset because they let you down. But it's because you weren't loving them unconditionally. And so what we're supposed to be doing here is basically loving people unconditionally, granting mercy and forgiveness if people don't do something that we thought that they should have. And why did we think that they should have? Probably because we had a skewed version of what we should be expecting out of somebody else. And we should never expect people to be on point, aligned with God every single moment of the day. And often, now back to the Essene mirrors, what you are expecting is what you are seeing. And so if you are seeing something negative in somebody else, then it's a sign to you to look inside yourself and start to pick apart, why am I seeing this in the world? It's because I've been judging it, or I've been doing it myself. And I need to sort of ask for forgiveness for that because it was on me. If we are working on ourselves, if we're becoming aligned with God ourselves and granting forgiveness and mercy and asking for it in return and being humble, then the world becomes a much more forgiving place. And people will interact with you in a much more easy way. However, that being said, if you are raising your vibration in this way, it starts to cause some dissonance with other people who are not in the same place. And so I'm going to get back on screen here. But basically, we should be working on ourselves completely and stop worrying about what other people are doing. So we should be able to love unconditionally and not care what about other people are doing or saying and that sort of thing. And that is still a process for me also. But I know that I've had some instances in my life over the past, 4 years or so since I prayed to find the truth. And I've been on this sort of spiritual journey of studying, researching, and all that. And I had a lot of stuff to go through. It was by phases and things like that. I was a more laid-back Christian originally, and then I started looking into the Bible, and then I started doing videos about my research. And so I sort of got a group of people on my channel who were very mainstream Christianity-like. And then I started doing the studies, and I wasn't going to stop studying just because other people didn't agree with me. But it led to some issues because, let's say I was down here and they were with me on the same vibration, and I was looking into the truther movement stuff, and there was some, fear, let's say, a martial law and that sort of thing. And so originally when you wake up, you kind of get afraid, and it jolts you. It's kind of like waking up to an alarm clock out of sleep, and you're kind of on edge, worried about what's going to happen next. And so I sort of attracted, with the law of attraction, the same sort of people who were looking into Christianity. They were looking into truther topics. They were afraid of martial law and the various other things and all that. And so basically then I was starting to do my research, and let's say afraid of hellfire and blasphemy and things like that, being accused of blasphemy. And I started looking into the hellfire stuff and how I started to believe in reconciliation for everybody, universal reconciliation. Everybody's going to be saved eventually, and hellfire is a purificatory thing, and it's not, what other people are thinking. And then these people sort of stayed down here, and I'm not saying everybody on my channel didn't. There were some people, I think, that just kept following me, and they may even still be watching my videos, and thank you for sticking with me for so long. But there were some people who just stayed at the same place. They were still afraid and all that. And then I started studying the Trinity topic and how I didn't believe that Jesus was Yahweh. He was, the Messiah. He didn't ever claim to be Yahweh. And so, again, I keep raising on this topic, let's say, I mean, I have other stuff that I'm not, but I'm not trying to say I'm a better person than these people. I'm just saying on this particular thing, I wasn't afraid of studying. I mean, I was afraid, but I moved past my fear, which got me up. And there were some people who were not going to move past their fear of blasphemy of studying the Trinity topic. And all of a sudden, somebody who was a friend turned me in to this channel, and this channel then called me a witch for studying the Trinity topic. And I know many people know this stuff. He's since repented and took down his videos, etc. But basically, what I've sort of described this... Sorry about the dog. Okay, I'm back. I had to deal with the dog barking, and somebody wanted to buy some CBD oil from me. So, to be back here, I was talking about the Trinity, and somebody had turned me in. And so basically I was feeling like I had a Judas, I had this person who was very friendly with me, and then she went and she turned me into somebody who he called me a witch, and basically sent tons of people, because of his video, onto my channel to explain to other people what a heretic I was and all that sort of thing. And so basically, I mean, that's what Judas did. And obviously with the law of attraction, we are attracting these things to us. And so I had to ask myself, well, why am I attracting this? Because it's happened over and over and over again. There are so many people that I was very friendly with who just sort of turned on me, and then all of a sudden I'm the bad guy. And so all I could think about was this idea about our vibrations, of me being, at a higher vibration on this. I'm very forgiving and merciful and all that stuff, and other people are very judgmental, and they're seeing things from their perspective. And I've talked about this before, but in the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, I am almost certain at this point that one of the ways to view that parable is to understand that people up here there's like a giant chasm between the people who are down here. This would be Abraham's bosom, and this would be the people who are sort of burning in fire, and somebody asks the person up there, hey, can I get a drop of water? And the person down here, they aren't going to go back down there to their level and everything. So I believe that there's a chasm between those who are of a higher vibration and those who are of a lower vibration. And we can talk to each other, but we can't understand each other. And the reason is because we have a different perception of reality. And that goes back to my video about perception being very unique. Let me move that. And let me make this smaller. There. And so if there's a 6 on the ground, somebody sees it from the perspective where it's a 9, and somebody sees it from the perspective where it's a 6. We both have a view of reality, and we're seeing what we're seeing. The 6/9 on the ground is literally a 6 or a 9, and it is the truth to that person who is seeing it. But it's different perspectives. So they can't understand each other because they're not seeing the exact same reality. And let's say one person is on this higher vibration and they're pointed this way, and one person's on this lower vibration, they're pointed this way. They're seeing completely different worlds. You could say this person's looking optimistic and this person's looking pessimistic. And it's a completely distorted or different reality than the other person is seeing. And they can't understand each other. And that's why when he's in the fire, that, he's told somebody from the dead coming back is not going to help you. So you can see my video about the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, where I talk about us who are born from above are basically represented there. We've been born again. We've died to our old self, and we're raising up. We're the heavenly person who's descended from heaven and all that stuff. Believers have descended from heaven. And, being born again means you've died to the old life. So we've come back from the dead, just like Lazarus, and trying to tell these people what we're seeing, and they're not seeing it. They can't hear it. That's why he says if somebody would come back from the dead, you wouldn't believe it anyway. So we're not going to send somebody else to you to tell you, because he wouldn't understand. He'd be spiritually deaf or spiritually blind to hearing these things. That's what happens when the vibrations are different. And so, let's say for the example of my Trinity thing, the person who was a friend and then turned me in, basically they had a different perspective on things. And they could not understand what I was saying because they were spiritually deaf to what I was saying. They saw things their way and their perspective. And so they did what they felt was right to save people. And, it's very interesting. There's some people who are anti-abortion or anti-vaccines, and they may not understand, and the same goes for the people that are pro-abortion and pro-vaccines, that the reason they believe these things, the main reason why they care so much about this issue is because they're trying to save people who they love. And it's the same, and maybe I can do a video expounding upon that, but there is a similar reason for why they believe what they believe, but they can't, because they care so much about their sides, they're not hearing the other side. There's no compromise, there's no listening to what the other person is saying sometimes. But if you can be more laid back and just go with the flow and forgive people for what you consider something wrong in them, then you can hear their perspective better and see things much more clearly. So the Judas thing, I really wanted to sort of talk about that because other people may have experienced this themselves. For me, it's been a huge issue that I've had people over and over again be a friend with me and then see me from a different perspective and totally blow me off. Basically, now I'm this horrible person in their mindset, and it's difficult sometimes for me to understand that they have this completely different view of me who is not me. And it's because of their perception. I know people have heard about the rose-colored glasses, but there are so many different perception glasses that people wear and see the world in so many different ways. And they can see it in, now rose-colored glasses tends to say that everything is cheery. I would say from a law of attraction perspective, you want to have the rose-colored glasses on and see the positive things and not be looking onto negative things. Because whatever you focus on is what you attract. And if you focus on positive things and being optimistic, then that's what you're going to get, great positive things in the future. If you focus on negative things and you're pessimistic, that things are never going to change, then you're going to get more of the same that you don't like over and over again. But that's what happens, is there's some people who they see something in somebody else and they judge it as negative, and then they focus on it and they're like, well, this person is doing this, and this person's committing a blasphemy or something, and then they're this horrible person, they're leading so many people to destruction, and they just keep building upon this belief and strengthening it until whenever they see that person, that's all that they can see, and they can't see any good anymore because they've been so focused on the bad, the negative that they've seen in that person, rather than being forgiving and loving and just understanding that, for one thing, they may be seeing things completely incorrectly, because that's what spiritual blindness is all about. It doesn't give us the whole picture. So we can see this world as heaven on earth, and I do see this world as heaven on earth. I see this world as a place that people in heaven want to come to, because this is where you get to create and do things and grow more. And from a heaven perspective, you want to be able to create and do things. And can you imagine sitting on the sidelines and watching us all down here and being like, why can't I get in there and start making things better? Well, I think that's more of what it's really like. They want to come here and do that. And yeah, we need the quote unquote bad, but to some people, this world is hell on earth. And it's all in the mind. This world is what you believe. Your perspective of this world is what you get. Whatever you focus on is what you get more of. And so I saw a post from somebody saying, please Lord come, because this world is hell, basically. And I have a completely different perspective. I understand that this world is heaven on earth, that we're free to choose whatever we want to do. And so many people are free and they choose bondage. They don't understand that we have control over our world, over our perceptions of this world, over our perspectives, and over our emotions. We can choose. Basically, there's a lot of people who are hitching themselves up with chains to somebody else. If you've heard the expression, that person really yanked my chain, it means you gave that person the power that whatever they do is going to control your emotions. Why did you give that person power? Why are you letting that person decide whether or not you have a good or a bad day? We should be loving unconditionally. Once you get into conditional loving, whenever somebody fails your condition, all of a sudden you think they suck. You hate them. You're upset with them. But that's because you were the one who said, I'm going to be tied to this person, and whatever they do or don't do, it's going to yank my chain or push my buttons. And so I've done videos about that in the past. Forgiveness is freedom, because you're getting rid of all the chains. If you can forgive people and not care what they do, whatever conditions that they decide to do or don't do, it's not going to bother you. You've gained freedom. The law of attraction, understanding it gives you freedom, because you're not going to let other people decide how you feel. You're going to decide how you feel. You're going to take control over your emotions and decide that, whether somebody does what they told you that they were going to do, or they don't do what they told you they were going to do, you understand that if you work on yourself, everything's going to work out. If you have faith that everything's going to work out, everything's going to work out. You're going to see that in this world. I've been conditional in the past, thinking that this job has to give me money. And as soon as this job disappears, then I don't have money. That's conditional thinking. And I've told you that's idolatry in a video before. It's idolatry to say that your job, this particular job, is going to give you your money. The thing is that our Father is giving us money in various ways, and it does not have to be tied to a job, a specific job. You may get it from jobs that you have, but out one job in comes another. God closes a door, opens a window, etc. Though I would say that it's probably the opposite way. Closes a window and opens a door, because you're going to get a better opportunity if you just roll with the flow. And that's what I've been doing this past year. So last year, something happened with my transcription job, and all of a sudden I was like, well, what am I going to do? And then I get this other job and this other job and this other job, and all of a sudden I've got this, way more money than I did last year at this time, exponentially, but not where I want to be yet, but I know that it's coming. And then another job, can disappear, and I can make more money in a different place. And there's always more and more opportunities. Our Father is moving us all over the place. It doesn't have to be tied to one specific job. And your love and comfort doesn't have to be tied to one specific friend or mate. And we have to just sort of go with the flow. And sometimes, as you are raising your vibration, some people who are not in that same place with you, you're just sort of going to vibrate away and part. And sometimes those partings are easy, and sometimes those partings are very difficult. And that is what I've learned with this past year. This whole year has been about learning that everybody has different perceptions of each other, and not everybody is going to stay together. Honestly, I don't see how anybody can stay together with the same group of people for their whole lives and still be okay. I don't know how people do that. Well, perhaps it's that they aren't changing, that nobody in that group is changing at all. But from my perspective, I've been changing a lot. And I've been moving into new territories of beliefs and understandings. And it's not just about vibration, but some of that. And now there's certain people that I'm just not in the same place anymore. And those friends fall away. And I'm trying to be okay with that, and I'm a lot more okay with it than I was, at the beginning of this year, because I've just seen it happen so much. And I wanted to talk about that whole narcissistic defenses. Now, there's some people who they see people who are narcissistic, and one of the telltale signs is somebody who is basically telling you that you did this, like gaslighting, but I don't think it's conscious most of the time. But they'll tell you, you did this, and this person will be like, I don't remember doing that. Well, that's the same thing with the 6 and the 9. People have different perspectives of the exact same event. That's why when people take the statements of somebody who saw a car crash or something, and they get completely different statements, because everybody saw it from their own perspective, and they all noticed whatever they were going to be noticing. Maybe somebody had been paying attention to the color blue all day, and they're like, wow, blue's my favorite color, I'm going to wear a bunch of blue today, I'm dressed up in blue. Somebody said, well, that's a great, fantastic blue, it really matches your blue eyes or something. And because of the law of attraction, they're going to notice things that are blue. And so you get to a car accident, and maybe somebody else says, I think it was a green car. And this person who's been talking about blue all day was like, well, no, it's a blue car, because that's what they're going to see. So if somebody's got this perspective of, my child is such a liar, because of the couple of incidences they've seen or heard of, maybe their teacher told them that they were a liar, but they weren't, but the teacher said it was the case that the person was lying, right? And so the parent's like, oh, my child's lying a lot in school. Well, they don't even know that that's true or not, but that's their perspective because their teacher told them that that's what the child was doing. And so then the child's like, I'm not a liar. I haven't been lying, but there's this two different perspectives of the same thing, because the parent took the teacher's, beliefs on that. And, it could be completely false perceptions, but that's what they believe. They believe it as if it's true because the teacher said it was, because they trusted the teacher. And the child, doesn't believe it, obviously, because they were the ones who were lying. And so you get into these places where the parent has a completely different view of the child than the child has. And it wasn't intentional on the parent's part, but they do have a different perspective. And when they talk about their child, and it'll come off as gaslighting when they say, well, why did you lie about this or that? And the child will say, I didn't do that. And so they'll grow up and they're like, I had a narcissistic mother, and it's not something that you wouldn't do yourself, I believe. So there is a tendency for us to just take somebody else's word on that, and judge people because of that. If you get into the whole flat earth, global earth, whatever, you could say the teachers, they don't know any better, and they're teaching kids this and that, and then it'll come out when a child is talking about it, or a parent's talking about it, the child would be, mocking them. And why are they mocking them? Because they were told something else in school. And it's not, there's a tendency in us to sort of mock other people sometimes. And it's something we need to watch out for. Just because we were told something else, we're told that it's a silly idea to look into this, or silly idea to look into that. I mean, even when I started talking about Jesus not being a Trinity, all of a sudden people were calling me a Jehovah's Witness. And I've never been a Jehovah's Witness in my life. I was born Catholic. And people have this perception, and they're just like, well, the only people in the world who are against the Trinity are the Jehovah's Witnesses or something. And so they mock. And we have a tendency in us to kind of just believe what we're told and mock people that are different. And so we have to understand that that's something in us that we can work on. As far as I go, I think I've sort of moved past, it just had to be the way it had to be. But when we run into people that are totally against us, they turn into a Judas, or they're being narcissistic and things like that, we have to ask, why are they seeing things in that perspective? And there was somebody else in one of my study groups on Facebook who was talking to me, and everything that they were saying, they weren't understanding what I was saying, and I realized that. And what they were saying, I realized, I was reading it as if they could be talking to themselves, and everything they said could be fitting themselves. So they were seeing me as a mirror of what was going inside of them, going on inside of them. So, they're saying like, you need to look into this or that, when like about being more careful and loving other people and being more humble or something like that, when they could have been saying the exact same things to them. And I forget the entire thing, which is because it really didn't matter to me. I realized that that was just them sort of talking to themselves. But they didn't realize they were talking to themselves. So oftentimes if you see things in somebody else that you don't like, you should take a step back and say, am I doing these things that I don't like in my own life? Is there some place in my life that I'm doing this? And you can be vague, more vague about it. It doesn't have to be specifically like, am I not taking my trash in? Some neighbors get really upset that somebody's not taking their trash in, but you can see it as, not that you're not taking your trash in, because of course you do, but you think about it in the broader perspective of, you want a clean neighborhood. And so you're upset that somebody has not been organized or whatever. So you're judging somebody else's organizational skills, perhaps, things like that. You're judging beauty, is somebody else doing the exact same thing that we should all be doing, and you just sort of judge that if somebody's different, all of a sudden they're not. And so you're judging somebody else, could be, all on yourself. You're supposed to be not judging people before judging yourself. And a lot of people, they go about judging other people without ever wondering, hey, am I doing this thing myself? And that's what Christ was talking about when he says about the mote and the log in somebody's eye. If you start picking somebody else apart because you think they've been doing this, and that, ask yourself, am I doing this, and that? And so when I see somebody and I see something that I think like, oh, I don't really like that, I'm thinking to myself, well, why is that coming into my life? What in me is attracting that to me? And I take full responsibility, and then I change, I work on myself. And I think that's really how everybody should be working, but they don't oftentimes. If they see somebody else do something that they don't like, they don't take responsibility. Hey, I attracted that into my life. They ask, well, how on earth could I have attracted that into my life? And the thing is, from the past year, I know that we do attract those things. Even if you're like, well, how on earth did I attract that? We do. And sometimes it's because there's something inside of us that we need to work on. Sometimes it's because, like I said, how did I attract somebody who went totally off the rails on me and sees me in a completely different perspective right now? Well, it could be that I went to a different vibration and all of a sudden we're not jiving anymore, and this person just not at the same place I am anymore. And it's okay. We're supposed to part. I've talked about this before. It says your vibe attracts your tribe. But I've also said your vibe actually can repel those who are not of your vibe. And that's why it says, resist the devil and he will flee. So we actually, as soon as we are resisting any negative vibes, those negative vibes fall away. They flee away from us. And so that can happen. But also sometimes things that we call bad, like the loss of a job, actually is the opportunity for more time to do what you do want to do and make more money. And that's what happened to me. And so we have these different opportunities to work on ourselves and to move forward in understanding and move forward in our spiritual journey. And a lot of people, they just say, no, that's bad, and I'm angry, upset, and they push it away, and then they just get more of it until they deal with their issues. Because you can see my video, an article about the lake of fire, but basically this world is purifying us. This law of attraction, it purifies us if we let it. It'll burn up the dross in us if we just understand and take responsibility and clean ourselves inside. And so basically that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, is just that if you see a quote-unquote Judas, somebody who is being narcissistic, they're seeing things at a different perspective than you are, and now all of a sudden they're warring against you. Sometimes it just means that you're moving forward and they're not. In some ways it could mean that you're the one who's not moving forward and they are, so we want to judge ourselves. And if you see something in somebody else that you don't like, then take responsibility and change yourself so that you can change the world. once you change yourself inside, you're going to be seeing things in a better, clear perspective. And when you do that, you're going to be looking for the more positive things in this world. And that's what you'll see. And then you can go back to that same person that maybe you were upset with and see all the positive qualities in them and not the negative stuff that you used to really focus on. But sometimes I think in this life, we're just not meant to gather back to those same people. And because there's just so much stuff. Like, let's say a large relationship. I did an Abraham Hicks video. I uploaded one a while back about this, a couple days ago or something. But basically, it's time to let go of some past relationships. If you have so much baggage and you just, when you see this person, they remind you of all the things that you don't like about the person. If you keep focusing on all the things you don't like about somebody, then it's never going to work. And a lot of people keep this baggage and they just keep regurgitating vibrationally the same things that they don't like. So if you say somebody is, they talk a lot, and they talk negatively, like they're swearing or something, and that's really bothering you, and then you're still trying to make it work with the person, but it really bothers you, well, you're just going to keep regurgitating more and more of it because that's what you're focused on. Whatever those negative things in somebody else are, you keep regurgitating them because you're focused on them. If you can only look at the positive aspects of somebody and forget about all the things that you would say negative aspects, the momentum behind those negative aspects can fall away. And if you focus on the positive aspects of a person more and more and more and more, then that's what you'll see when you see that person. But what I'm saying is there's some relationships, doesn't have to even be romantic, just friendships, they keep focusing on the things that they don't like, and they keep regurgitating and seeing only the things that they don't like. If you could just let those things go, it would be no problem. If you can focus on positive things, I think relationships can work out. But if you're completely focused on the negative things, or those negative things keep coming up to your mind, and you don't forgive and let go, then those things are going to keep coming up because the lake of fire is there to purify us. This law of attraction is there to purify us. If we keep seeing what we keep thinking about, and until you can let go of your anger and upsetness of something that you're seeing in somebody else, and then you're just going to keep seeing it over and over until you can let it go, basically. And when you can forgive and not be tied, because they're yanking your chain every time they do this condition, right? And you don't forgive it, you're completely tied. You're a slave to whatever they do or don't do. But if you can let go, forgive, you're no longer tied to what that person does or does not do, then you can move forward, and you probably won't see those aspects anymore because you're not focused on them in a negative way, because it's been purified out of you. And that's what we're here to do, is sort of let the law of attraction, lake of fire, purify us so that we can become heaven inside. We can enter the kingdom of heaven inside. And once you enter the kingdom of heaven inside, the kingdom of heaven is going to be coming into your world. And you're going to see things from a completely different perspective that you never saw before. Because there's a lot of spiritual blindness and spiritual deafness, as I've said, connected to holding on to these negative things and not judging yourself before judging others. When you judge other people before judging yourself, you are spiritually blind. And I totally understand it because I've been there and I've done that. And I'm not going to go back there again. I take full responsibility for my world and my... It's totally freeing. And at the same time, it can be annoying when something bad happens. You're like, well, I made that happen. But I've really come to start to think that it's not bad because it's going to lead to something better. And I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen over and over again. And so I'm not going to label things bad willy-nilly anymore. I'm going to understand that if something happened that I didn't like, it's putting forth something that I do want into the future, and that's a positive thing. So that's actually step 5 of Abraham Hicks, if you've been following that. If you don't, just see that, it's understanding that God's in control and everything is working out for the greater good and a greater purpose, and he's got our back. And that's where I'm at this point. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and shalom.
Chris White once coined the phrase short-term New World Order freakout syndrome to explain what it's like to have your perception of the world shattered. Of course, it's not just about the shape of the world, whether it's flat, round, or something else entirely. This New World Order freakout often includes now saying no to GMOs, fluoride, vaccines, and pharmaceuticals. It's a complete overhaul to your lifestyle. And trying to explain that mainstream media is just propaganda to promote false flags, division, and more can really put a strain on your relationships. Have you gotten tired of being mocked by your own family for what you share? We've all been there. Are you treated like the black sheep because of the commandments you keep? I get it. We're all trying to figure things out together, but sometimes you just have to let your family and friends be. Plant the seed and wait and see. But while you wait for them to catch up, do you wish you had someone to talk with who gets it? That's what Truther Talk is for. Being able to discuss what's going on in your life and what you're interested in without feeling like you're going to be judged as a crazy conspiracy theorist who should be on drugs or committed. No subject is taboo, and I'd love to hear from you. Simply truthertalk.com. Simply make an appointment and let's talk, Truther. Believe the truth.